Welcome to the Divorce Survival Guide podcast, where we have open and honest conversations about co-parenting, separation, divorce, and the hardest question of all, should you stay or should you go? I'm Kate Anthony, your divorce survival guide, and I'm here to help you navigate some of the roughest waters you've ever swum in and answer some of your toughest questions. I've been to hell and back. And now it's my mission in life to help you get to the other side of this process with your sanity and your heart intact.
Hey everyone, welcome back. Thank you so much for spending this time with me. Truly, it means so much. Today I have a great show with my friend Leanne Oaten. You may know Leanne as Awakening Women's Support on Instagram. She's got an amazing Instagram. And she is a former counselor with over 9 years of experience coaching and supporting clients. And after working in the counseling field in private practice for several years, she decided to go virtual with her business to serve women all over the world. She educates and guides women who are experiencing narcissistic abuse to end the cycle and get clarity on whether to stay or leave. And in today's episode, we talk about the top 8 things that women experience when they are victims of narcissistic abuse. And you all want to be here for this whole conversation because it is that good. So without further ado, here is my conversation with Leanne Oaten. Leanne, thank you so much for coming on and talking to us. It's such an honor and a privilege and a joy to, dig into this stuff with you.
Well, I'm so happy to be here because I love talking about this stuff. It is a huge passion of mine to help women, first of all, see where things in their relationship aren't just normal, everyday, run-of-the-mill conflict, when it turns into toxic, and when it is actually more specifically narcissistic abuse. So that's what I'm going to share with you guys today.
Yeah. And there's a real difference between just sort of abuse and narcissistic abuse, right? An abuser and a narcissist. Can you help us unpack that a little bit?
So the way I see it is anyone can be abusive and not necessarily be narcissistic. Narcissistic abuse follows a certain type of familiar patterning and, a particular bundle, I will say, of different traits and things that almost all of them do. Now, not all of them do all of them, right? Like what we're going to go over today, I'm going to go through the top 8. You might have someone that doesn't do all 8, but they're just so common. It's a common thread that I see that I have like the top 8 list, right?
Right.
Because it's so common.
Right.
So you can have someone that's emotionally abusive, kind of flippant, not considerate of your feelings, but at the same time, I also want to add that I just don't know. I feel like anyone that can abuse and not feel deep remorse must have some narcissistic traits in there, because otherwise you end up feeling so badly. You don't want to do it again, right? When you hurt somebody.
Yeah. Right. Exactly. And it's different, but it's almost a form of sociopathy, right?
That's there's no remorse.
There's no remorse. There's continuing to twist things and confuse things in order to make you the bad guy, the aggressor, the abuser often, as opposed to taking any responsibility with the goal in mind is to not take responsibility.
Yeah. And that's where I feel like, when I'm asked that question, what's the difference between just like basic emotional abuse and narcissistic abuse? It's hard to answer because, like I said, I think there must be some level of that in there regardless, because to be able to hurt somebody repeatedly in the ways that you've made very clear, this is the pattern. You've made it very clear that these things are not okay with you and they continue to do them.
Right.
So you have to have no ability to self-reflect or take any accountability or have any ability to feel that guilt and have that propel you toward doing better. Mm-hmm. So as far as narcissistic abuse goes, like one of the top things that those with the traits, you can have traits or be a full-blown NPD, narcissistic personality disorder individual. That's more where you're getting diagnosed, you're clinically diagnosable, you go to a psychiatrist, but they're often not going to go, they're not going to go and get that label, right? They're not
that's the problem, right? Is getting that diagnosed requires someone to feel badly enough about their life or their experiences, or, how they're treating people, to want to get help and want to get a diagnosis and to actually seek answers. But but someone with narcissistic personality disorder doesn't necessarily follow that personality pattern of actually giving a shit, right?
No, they're blaming it on you.
Right. Exactly.
So how can we can't change unless we're able to look honestly at ourselves. Right.
Right.
And often the women that I work with who are in these relationships, they're taking all the blame themselves. It's very imbalanced.
That's right.
So really what we're going to talk about today is specific to narcissistic abuse. But the biggest thing before I go into those top 8 is one of their most used tools is gaslighting, right? Like that's the thing that messes with women's head on such a deep level. They don't even know what ends up anymore. And that takes a certain amount of inability to have any regret or remorse, because you're messing with somebody's psychology, you're messing with somebody's mind and have no qualms about it. No introspection that, I'm actually doing damage here.
That's right. That's right. And the design of gaslighting, right, is not just to not take any personal responsibility. It's also to distort your reality so badly that you actually start to believe that you're going crazy. Right. Yes. And that's like, again, sociopathic. That's not just like your average, like, oh, we have a misunderstanding, or like, I thought you said this, or I thought. It's like, there is a design to destabilize you mentally so badly that you actually start to lose your mind.
Yeah. And I always see it as it's a systematic approach to twist things so that you're questioning yourselves and you stop questioning them. So if they're taking the heat off of, hey, I did something wrong here, and they're twisting it and they're throwing it off, and I didn't say that, and they're denying it and they're throwing it back on you.
That's right.
And so, that's really like, for sure, an ongoing, I would say the one constant in all relationships, if you have a narcissistic partner who has traits or is further along the spectrum, it doesn't really matter. That is one that I really believe that they're, that's going to be there all the time. You're going to be experiencing that.
Yeah. Yeah.
Continually.
And I want to caution people, because I know that what happens with a lot of people who might be listening to this is that your first inclination is to run back to your partner and be like, I figured it out. Right. What you're doing is this thing, it's called abuse or gaslighting. And like, because surely if they understood that that's what they were doing, they would stop.
Yeah.
But the psychology of this kind of person, they actually do know, right?
I believe that they must. I think they know what they're doing is wrong. They may not know why they're doing it because they're not looking at why. They're not even asking why. But I think they must know what they're doing, or else why would they go to such great lengths to hide what they're doing? Why do they only do it to you and not their boss and their coworker and their mother and their brother? Why aren't they treating other people like this?
That's right. And why do they get so upset when you out them?
Exactly.
Right? If God forbid any of your friends happen to know anything that's happened, if you've shown them the text messages while you're out with them, if you have any of these things, they get really angry. And it's like, well, if you don't want other people to know about it, then you must know that it's
bingo.
Wrong.
Exactly.
They know.
Yeah. And there's a lot of this, like, you're just trying to make me the bad guy kind of thing. And so, I mean, that would be the biggest thing, across the board, is that there is no accountability taken. And the tactics they use to avoid accountability are things like gaslighting, and more of what we'll go into. Do you want me to dive into?
Yes, let's go. Let's go into these top 8 the top 8 things that women experience. I love this.
All right. So the first is the extreme highs and lows. So they're very extreme. The highs are really high. You literally almost feel like you're getting a high, like a hit of something when you're getting love bombed, when you're getting all the niceties and the attention. And, when they're in that hoovering love bombing phase of the cycle.
Right.
And then when they decide they're going to take that away, then you drop into the lowest of lows, which can look like depression and apathy and just feeling exhausted. And this will often precede like an abuse incident of some kind, only to be followed once again by another extreme. And that is part of the cycle. So that is the cycle
of abuse as we know it. Right.
Yeah. It's like up, down, up, down, up, down. The second is confusion. And this isn't confusion that you feel in any other area of your life. Like you might feel kind of brain fog, but the confusion is related to this one person and this relationship.
Right.
You don't feel it with your best friend. You don't feel it with other people in your life, unless they're also narcissistic or abusive. Right. But I feel like it's different when you're dealing with someone you're in an intimate relationship, living day and day with,
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And it's that, and that sort of is part of that gaslighting, right? Because I'm confused because I feel like it's you, but you are so convinced that it's me that I'm starting to become convinced that it's me, but I can't put those pieces together because they don't quite fit. But like, you're really convincing me that it's not you. So right?
Exactly.
And it's just so twisted. It's so twisted.
And with the highs and lows, because you're like, why sometimes can they be so great over here? And then they just drop the ball and they're right back to the same once again. Like, I like to say, are they good people doing bad things or bad people doing good things once in a while? Like you're always like trying to figure out in your head to make sense of it.
Yes, that's right. That's right.
So that's the second one. The third is a lot of self-blame. And again, like you said, it comes back to the continuation of them always throwing everything onto you, the blame shifting. And women in these relationships are often very open to taking blame because they're self-reflective. Oftentimes they're introspective, they're self-aware women where they're like, could this be me? Maybe I could have done that differently. What could I have done differently to a fault?
Yes.
Right. So they're trying to take abuse and go, what can I do differently? That doesn't mean you can't do something differently, but it's not your fault. Like,
that's right.
The choice to abuse is the fault of the person doing the abusing. That's it.
That's right. That's right. And because it's not your fault. And look, we all have things to work on in relationships, right? But that's different from blame and things being your fault.
Yes. And the thing is that women are taking on all the blame. And yet the one who is causing the majority of the issues, 95% of it, I would say, the other 5 is just the reaction to it. But it is because they're not taking any accountability whatsoever.
That's right.
For them to take accountability, they have to drop that image they want to hold of being a good person, especially these covert types. They're trying to hold the image of I'm a good guy. So if I take the blame, I'm admitting that that's not true. So it's easier for me to just make it your fault.
And often they'll do that like, no, I know, like it's totally like, I have these things to work on too. And I'm really working on, or, I'll think about that. You're right. There's some, absolutely. And so I always say like, they take responsibility for like 5% in a really big sort of show of responsibility, so that to distract you from the fact that they're not actually doing any of the work of that 95%, right? They'll put on a big show of like, oh yeah, no, totally. I absolutely have that stuff to work on. You're right. But here's the thing, you right? And so it looks like they're taking responsibility. And then you're like, right, no, that's my part. Okay, I'm going to go to therapy. I'm going to go get a coach. I'm going to work on this. I'm going to work on that. I'm going to take this program, this workshop, blah, blah, blah. Because you're right. I have all these things to work on. And he's just been like, yeah, no, I've got this stuff to work on. And that's all he's done.
That right there is like a bingo moment, that right there. Because they'll say things like, I know I'm not perfect, but there's these things that you have here too. You're not perfect either. There's a lot of this equalizing. They want to equalize the issues, that this is our issue, 50-50, remember? Not in this situation. And what you just said there about how they try to sort of act empathetic and act introspective, it's all acting, right? And so there's nothing going on behind the scenes to actually make sure that that is happening. It's just words. And that's why you'll end up in that same conversation 100 times about the same issue. Well, you said last time you're going to work on it, and here we are again. Well, I'm not perfect. It's going to take time. I think you just expect perfection of me. I'm not going to be able to just get it quickly. It's going to take time. Okay. Right. Okay. I get that. See, because we're so
right.
Right. Yeah. I get that takes time. Right. Until you get to a place where you're like, yeah, no, we've been through this 100 times.
Yeah.
That isn't going to fly anymore.
That's right.
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 So that is a huge piece is self-blame, women taking it on themselves, and they feel like everything's their fault. The fourth is high anxiety. So you could be someone that already has some anxiety.
Yeah.
Right. So then you blame, your anxiety is to blame for the issues, right? I'm just so anxious. I have always had this anxiety. Well, the thing is being in a relationship like this, if you already have anxiety or an anxiety disorder of some kind, it's going to exponentially throw it through the roof, right? You're going to have panic attacks, and interactions are going to cause panic and heart racing and different stress related responses. And you'll have a lot of anxiety related directly to this person and this relationship because of all that's going on.
That's right. Right. And it's like, and then you'll think like, oh, well, it's me. It's my anxiety, right? I'll go on meds, or I'll do my mindfulness practice and all of that, which, by the way, like, yes, like, if you're suffering, do all of that. But it's like trying to treat a burn wound in a fire, right? You can put all the ointment on you want, but if you're still holding your hand over an open flame.
Yeah. And that's the thing. There's so many things that we can do to manage, but if you keep going home to this person that isn't, like, you could go to therapy and be like, okay, I feel good. You're driving home. You're like, yes, I'm on point. I feel good. I've got all my crap out. I dumped it all out. Here I go. I'm ready. And they go home, boom, right back to it again with one comment, one covert jab, one passive aggressive comment, just their energy sometimes being in it.
Oh yeah.
Right. And you're right back to it again. Right. Because the core of it is the person there that is actually triggering that response. Right.
That's right. And I think the energy is something that's really important to not bypass, right? Like, I want to actually sort of stop for a second and talk about that energy, because I know, that's sort of where the walking on eggshells comes in, because it's not just because they're going to say something mean, they're going to explode in some, rageful fit. It's not just that, right? Is he going to bristle at every word that I say? Is he going to just, look at me with disdain? Is he just going to ignore me? Is he going to start withholding? Right. And so it is that energetic shift, and we become so hypersensitive to it. I think those of us who have been in these relationships become sort of more highly attuned to other people's energies, because it's a life or death mechanism, right? It's a protection mechanism for us.
Yes. And I do believe too, that it goes back into our childhood, into our formative years, family system, that you felt that in the dynamic at home. So all of this always, can always be traced back. But for me, I had to become aware of that. Like, when my spouse would be coming home, and if there was anything out of place, I knew the things that he would get all grumbly about. And I always felt like I had to go and make sure everything was just right for him when he would come home. And I had my youngest she was so little when she said it, not very old at all, said, why, whenever dad's going to come home, are you running around like so worried about everything? Because I would get anxiety and be like, clean up your stuff. And like, it would affect me, right? Because I didn't want to deal with that. Right. But there would always be something.
Yeah.
Or it would be acting energetically, just yuck. and you're like, what's wrong? And it's like nothing. So it doesn't even have to be anything.
Right. That's right.
Lit. And you're like, but that's not what my body's telling me. Well, there's nothing.
Right.
Just leave me alone, kind of, so it's not always outright. If you're dealing with a covert person that isn't just going to come home and yell and scream and throw things.
That's right.
Very quiet.
It is. And this is one of the difficulties with emotional abuse, right? Is we don't have bruises. In the UK and some European countries, coercive control has been made illegal, but it's very hard to prosecute because it's virtually impossible to prove. Like, you can't be like, well, he came home and with an attitude and be like, I'm going to prosecute him on that. Like, what?
Well, he's going to come home. Like, for me, it was the thing, for whatever reason, is always the garbage. The garbage is full. And then eventually I was like, why don't you take out the damn garbage if you see it's full? Right. Because eventually you're like, whoa, what am I living in? The Twilight Zone? Right.
It's not my fucking job. What are you doing?
You're here all day. I'm at work. You're here all day. I'm home all day with little kids. Right. This is the awakening of it, like, this was so long ago now, but I can recall it like it's just yesterday, and now I can look at it and go, boy, oh boy, I was just not in my power. But when you're in it, you don't see it. And so you're always in that anxiety, whether things are spoken or they're not. And if you are a highly sensitive person, an HSP, or this, the buzzword empath, right? I would say I've definitely fallen into those highly sensitive, highly attuned. I can feel things before I can see them. Like, being in the energy of someone like that very much can throw me off. I've gotten better. That's the fourth one, is the anxiety. And definitely, like you said, the energetic component is huge. It's not just about what they're doing or saying.
We're going to take a quick break to hear from our sponsor today. For over a decade, I've helped divorcing moms put their children at the center of all of their decisions. So whenever I hear about moms struggling to co-parent with an ex that abuses alcohol, I have one system in mind: SoberLink. SoberLink's alcohol monitoring system is the most convenient, reliable, and reasonable way for a parent to provide evidence that they're not drinking during parenting time. SoberLink's real-time alerts, facial recognition, and tamper detection ensure the integrity of each test, so you can be confident your kids are with a sober parent. With SoberLink, judges rest assured that your child is safe, attorneys get court-admissible evidence of sobriety, and both parents have empowerment and peace of mind. Trust the experts in remote alcohol monitoring technology to keep you informed and your kids safe and secure. To download the resource I created with SoberLink, Checklist for High Conflict Divorces, visit soberlink.com/DSG. And now back to our show.
The fifth is crazy making communication. This is like a big umbrella. The tools that they use, though, are many, right? The real thing here with crazy making communication is nothing gets resolved. You could be in a 5-hour-long knockdown, drag out fight about one issue you brought up, and it never gets resolved. You're like, what did I even bring up to begin with? You literally are going, whoa, wait a minute. Like, what was it I was even trying to address? Because now we're like 3 hours in, and so
no idea what
the tactics they use to get there, though, are many. The blame shifting, stonewalling, gaslighting, twisting, diverting the topics, all that, right? But crazy making communication gets its name because it literally makes you feel crazy, like your head is spinning. And did I even get this thing resolved I brought up? No. So it works.
Right. Exactly. Right. It's a diversionary tactic. That's all it is, right? Is that to divert from the original point and what we're talking about so that I don't have to take responsibility.
Yeah. Let me just mess with your head and twist it all around. And then I get off scot-free, and somehow you walk away again, feeling self-blame. It's awful.
And if you react, then you're abusing me.
Yes.
Right. That's reaction abuse. I think we feel the same way about that.
Yeah. I don't think it's abuse. I think it's a natural response to abuse.
Right. That's what I always say. It is a perfectly appropriate response to someone who's gaslighting you or making you crazy.
Yeah. It can make you feel rage. You want to
Right.
throw things. You want to call them every name in the book. You want to punch them in the throat, even at times. You don't do it, but the feelings are there because you're just so frustrated.
I smashed my kitchen cabinet, which was glass, and all the glass shattered. And I had been saying, I need to go for a walk. I need to get out of the house. I'm trying to protect myself from, I'm being triggered. I need to get out. I need to move. And he was blocking the door. By the way, in the world of domestic violence is called false imprisonment. It's a misdemeanor. He's blocking the way. He won't let me out. And I'm going, and I'm like, I'm ramping up and up and up. And I'm like, you have to let me go. You have to let me go. Yeah. Like we talked about this in therapy. This is our tool, right? And he wouldn't do it. And I lost it. And I slammed the kitchen cabinet and the glass shattered. And he stood back and he was like, wow.
Oh my God.
Look at you.
That just made me feel like so many things in my body. Because I had so many of those experiences of where, you do finally just lose it and you do or say something that obviously looks bad. And that's what is focused on, not that they were behaving in a certain way.
Wow, you're crazy.
Yeah. Wow. Yeah. It's that standing back calmly. Wow. Like
exactly.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Oh, wow. All right. That's who you are. Okay.
Yeah.
You're the abuser now.
That just increases the trigger. And the thing that is just so sickening about all this is like, as we're talking about it, because we've experienced it, we can speak to it like this, but the fact that this isn't something that is illegal is like, there just needs to be something. There has to be a way for these men to be held accountable. It's something that makes me just sick. Yeah. Because you're not hit, there's no repercussions.
That's right.
And oftentimes these guys get away with what they do without other people knowing. That's right.
Yep.
They get the world to feel sorry for them. They get the world to think they're the victim, that they're just the good guy victim that was totally effed over by their partner, or their partner's the crazy one that breaks glass in the cabinets. She's got such anger, right? That they get away with it all. And it's just sickening.
Yeah. I mean, I agree. And I always come back to the Gabby Petito footage, the body cam footage, and how he was so calm and she looked like the crazy one.
Yep.
And had they had any domestic violence training, really understood that, for those of us in the DV world, we were like, clearly he's the aggressor. Clearly she's destabilized and she's completely off her rocker because something has been going on.
And they missed it.
And they missed it and she's dead. So
that's just the not a perfect example, but like a chilling, awful example. But it that exactly is what I thought when I saw that, right?
That's right.
It was like, wow, she's been like, her head's been messed with and she thinks it's her fault.
That's right. That's right. And I hope to God that her death really causes certainly, those cops to, but I hope it was a little bit of a national awakening to cops missed something very, very vital. And like, that is what they missed. And I'm hoping that more law enforcement agencies are understanding this more and more, but we'll see.
Yeah. Something more needs to be done, because those of us out in the field doing the work, we can only reach so many. That's why it's good to do this and share audiences and because it spreads the word, but like, it still feels like sometimes like there's not enough. There's something else that needs to be done. It feels like such an injustice that this kind of thing happens to women. They're the ones left to pick up the pieces. And then the other one gets to walk away like they haven't even been affected. They just move on.
That's right. And they do it again.
Exactly.
They do it again. Exactly the same thing.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yep.
Oh, I know. It's something that sometimes I get so wrapped up in it. I'm like, what else can I do? What else can be done? Like something else needs to be done. And I know I can't save the world, right? It's just that part of me. It's like, I want to rescue everyone, but
I think that, us doing the education work that we're doing is really, really important. I just wish that we could, certainly here in the US, I know you're in Canada, but I really wish that the family court system in certainly in the US, and I don't know if it's what it's like in Canada, but in the US, family court judges are not required to have any training in domestic violence at all. And they're on a rotation. So last week they could have been, doing like estate law. And then this week they're doing family law, and there's no sort of additional training in this. So they don't recognize these things.
Yeah. Yeah, totally. And that's just it, is there isn't any of that. And it's getting missed. Right.
Yep.
Yeah. It is terrible. So I have three more. The sixth one is rumination and obsessive thinking. So you have a lot of rumination and obsessive thought loops about your partner, the relationship, the last interaction, an interaction that happened 3 months ago. Like your brain is just always trying to process what it can't make sense of. Like our brain wants to make sense of things. I like to close loops. I like to say it's like closing a loop. If I have open loops, it'll spin in my head, right? A task I didn't finish, something I need to go sign and deal with at some office, like that stuff will go in my head till it's closed. When it's closed and I can check it off my list and make sense, I don't think about it again. Right. When you're in this type of situation, there is none of that. There are no closed loops. Like I said, there's no resolution. There's no coming to a resolve, right? Because it's happening again and again and again and again and again, right? Mm-hmm. So we don't get to close loops in these relationships. So you're trying to make sense of it in your head. So you might find yourself just spinning the conversation around obsessively, an interaction, what was said. It takes up a lot of mental space.
It's exhausting. And then that I think funnels it back into the confusion and the crazy making, right? Yeah. And the anxiety.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, this is it. They're not all happening in isolation. It's like, you're not just sitting there blaming yourself. You've got the spinning head and the confusion and, the highs, like this is all going on at the same time. And you wonder why your body's breaking down and your kids are acting out and they're having issues. That's the saddest part we haven't even touched on, is the damage this all does to the kids in the midst of all of this, not just what they're seeing, but also feeling like they don't have a parent they can count on because nobody knows what the hell's going on. Right. Like as a mom, you're struggling just to survive. So the stuff I see that happens with kids is really heartbreaking. So, but that's a whole other side to things.
But it's important, but I think it's important to say that, if you resonate with the conversation that we're having right now, and if you resonate with these 8 points, we're only up to 6, but if you're like, oh God, yes, what you're modeling to your children is incredibly destructive. And what we want to do is we want to stay for our kids, and we want to, maintain a home and a quote family. And we sort of put that above the very real reality that this family is broken.
Yeah.
It is so broken. And when we talk about, quote, broken homes, right? Like this is a broken home.
Very good point. Very good point. And a lot of times what happens is that the kids are acting out what is going on in the home. They're kind of like the barometer, right? To be like, something's not right here. And, we're trying to like figure out what's wrong with Tommy that's acting out when it's like, well, it's probably related to the home. Right.
Yeah. Right. So exactly. Yeah.
Yeah. We can't, overlook that they are very much impacted by it. So that's a whole other topic on parenting. We could do another interview on how kids are impacted, right?
Right. Yeah.
Like what I see anyways in my practice. But so moving on, number 7 is that it just feels one-sided. The relationship feels very much one-sided. You're the one that cares about it. You're the one that's always trying to build connection and improve things. And you feel like you're doing the majority of the work everywhere, emotionally, in the house, logistically with the kids. Everything just feels like it's on your shoulders, and you don't feel like you actually have that partnership.
I love the way you've broken these down because they're so on point. They're so on target, right? Like I said before, it's like, oh, there's something wrong with me. Okay. I'll go to therapy. I'll go do this workshop. I'll take this class. I'll like, da. And they don't do they don't crack a fucking book.
They might go to like a couple therapy sessions.
Yeah.
or
right.
like read a few pages of the book that you've agreed to read together.
To look good.
Yeah.
Right. Just enough to look
dust.
good. That's right.
And then
That's right.
you're in the role of like, hey, have you been doing the book? Have you been to therapy? That's not the role you want to be in, right?
That's right.
like a mother role. It's you're like, when was your last therapy session? Have you been going? What have you figured out? What have you talked about? Have you read the book? So this is a whole other thing that can come out where it's the hypervigilance of control, wanting to have control.
And then you're the harpy.
Well, this is it, right? You can't force me or just on me all the time. But for you, you're going, well, I'm doing my part. I said I would do.
Right.
And I'm just wanting you to be accountable, but they won't be accountable. It'll be you who is expecting too much of them. Or one that I heard recently, one of my my ladies in my program, she said her partner says to her, well, you have more time than I do to work on yourself.
Okay. Like, I don't even know what that means. Like, oh, cause he works and she's a stay-at-home parent. Yeah.
She works as well.
She works as well.
Yeah. So, it's just certain things come up on coaching calls where I'm like, oh yeah, there you go. So again, it's like the blame shifting, kind of evading self-responsibility. Well, you can see that they find time to go fishing, play ball, go to the gym.
That's right. That's
all
right.
their work meetings, like all those things, they make time for.
Right. He comes home, he cracks a beer, he goes and sits in the lazy boy and like watches
for 5 hours,
for 5 hours while you're cooking and cleaning and getting the kids ready for bed and all of that. But like, he's tired from his day.
Yeah. And that kind of messaging can be infuriating because it's like, you're seeing them sit in front of the TV for 4 or 5 hours at night and say to you, I don't have time to read a book like you do.
Right. Exactly.
What I heard was, well, that's your job. You're always you love personal growth and it's your job. Well, yeah, sure. That's true. But I make the time. I always find the time.
Right. But also this isn't work. This is our relationship.
Exactly.
Right.
And that's the other thing with the one side is the care isn't there. The actual genuine like goodwill of, I want to heal this too. I want us to be okay. I want things to be better too. And so I'm actually going to do some things and stick to like, that's not happening. The follow through, you will see, does not happen. And it might for a short while, but it doesn't last. Super frustrating. And then number 8 and the final, and there obviously could be way more. These are just the top. It is just that your partner follows a nice, nasty pattern of behavior.
Oof.
There's a lot of the nice, nasty. And again, that ropes back into the confusion and the feeling high anxiety because you don't know what you're going to get. And what I like to say is, well, you can have a pretty good idea what you're going to get because you know that the nice isn't going to last. Something is going to happen. And this can create the anxiety because you're feeling really good because they're being nice, or some women, like normal. He's being normal right now. I don't want to bring up this issue. Right. Yeah. He's being nice. I don't want to rock the boat, but it's not going to last. Like there's a part of you that's trying to like spin your wheels, trying to like figure out how to make it last. If I could just catch it here and not do this here and make sure I've taken care of this over here, then maybe it will last, but it doesn't. And you're going to get the nasty.
And that's really what's happening is that, when you're in this kind of abusive relationship is that you don't want the relationship to end. You want the abuse to end.
Yeah.
And so you're constantly looking for ways to make it stop. And so when he's in the nice part of the nice, nasty pattern, you get lulled into a false sense of security. Right. It's that calm period before the tension building, before the next explosion. Right. And so in that, the love bombing and then the calm, period, you somehow convince yourself, or he convinces you, that it won't happen again. It was a one-off, or it was this, or it was your fault. And so if you didn't do this, then it would be fine. Right. And you get lulled into this false sense of security because you have hope. It's not your fault. You're just desperate to make this stop. Right.
And it's because you want it to work out. That's like you said, there is that part of you. You're like, I really, really want this to work out.
That's right.
And so they're winning because you're doing all the work to try and make it
Right.
to make it
That's
work
right.
out.
And, the number one reason that women don't leave abusive marriages is love.
Mm-hmm.
That's the number one reason. It's love, because we love them.
Well, and I think too, there's this point to where I feel like that there's a point where it's not necessarily love that we're feeling.
Right.
But it's the toxic bonding there.
Yes, it's the
that
trauma
we
bond.
think is love.
That's right. I was going to say, and thank you for saying that, because it's love. Like, we say it's love, right? So we think we're staying because we love them.
Yeah.
But is that love?
Right. Yes. So that's what you're saying. Like, the languaging for women is like, oh, but I love him. Really? What do you love about this person?
What do you love about him? Right. Right. Do you respect him? Does he care about you? Does he, right? Is he a good dad? Like, all of the things, right? What is it that you love? Yeah. Oh gosh, there's just so much here. Right. But I think that that's an important piece, is that really, whether it's love or not, we don't want the relationship to end. We just want the abuse to stop. We want to feel good again in this relationship. We want the good part to stay.
Yeah.
Right.
And that's what's so heartbreaking, I think, too, about it is, and I don't know if it's just the toxic bonding, the traumatic bonding that keeps them locked into this, I want this to work. Or is it that women that end up in these relationships are handpicked because of their commitment, because of their level of integrity, because of who we are? We make a good partner because when we're committed, we go all in.
Right.
And they don't have to. Right. So I always wonder, like, which is it? That's what gets me thinking,
really
because the women I work with have like this theme of like, those women would commit to their men if their men were doing the work. Like, they'd be with them through thick and thin if their men were actually doing the work to change.
Right. That's right. Oh, absolutely.
So we make really good life partners if we would pick someone who has the same level of integrity and commitment into the relationship.
Do they exist?
Yeah. No comment.
$64,000 question.
I'll let you know.
Leanne and I will let you know when we figure that out. Can we talk briefly about trauma bonding? Because we touched on that for a second, and let's bring that up to the surface a little bit, right? Because this thing that we think is love is actually like an addictive cycle. How do you describe?
So with trauma bonding, the way that I see it, and I believe too, that this again stems back to a formative years relationship, usually with the opposite sex parent. So we're trying to get some kind of need met in this relationship that's not being met, but it is formed by when you have a relationship with somebody that you love, or, you have an intimate relationship with, who is hurting you. And then they're also coming in and trying to help you and heal you at the same time. So the one that is hurting you is the one you're seeking to heal you. That's what creates that mind fuck, if it's okay, I swear. That's what it creates.
Have you met me, girl?
And it becomes this thing where you only want that person. You think that's the only person that can make you feel better. But you forget, he's the reason I'm crying. He's the reason I feel this way. He's the reason I'm broken, and I'm looking to him to come and comfort me now. That is what creates that. And because women are becoming so isolated slowly in these relationships, they only seek that one person, which is what that person wants. So that person can come in and say, oh, your best friend Karen doesn't know our relationship. Of course she's going to say that about me. She's your best friend. And you're like, right. Yeah. So I can't trust her. You're right. She's probably just trying to like make you look bad. Right. And so the more these things happen, or I will hear things like, oh, your therapist, of course your therapist is going to say that, kind of stuff.
They're
like
only
that.
Hearing one side.
Right. Right. And so then you're like, okay, right. Can't trust the therapist. Stop going to the therapist. I can only trust you. So the more this is happening, you're literally have this one person that you're seeking the comfort from. And they're the only one that can give that to you, which leads to those highs and lows.
That's right.
And so you have to get to a place where you realize, oh my God, this is like really, really bad. Yeah. That this is where I'm at.
Right. And, the thing about them too, is that I think there's a dopamine cycle that goes along with it, which is why I think, it really is an addiction, right? It's because we get the dopamine hit when they're love bombing us, when they're being kind. We're like, we get a chemical hit. And then when they take it away, we want the hit again. We want the love, we want the connection, we want all of those things. But really it's also this dopamine hit that we become addicted to this cycle happening.
Exactly. And with that sudden taking it away, that's when, if you're prone to depression, you're going to go into that depressive phase.
Yes.
And then that goes to also show you that this person may have all along just been your drug, because maybe depression was there to begin with. And this person you felt was the thing that was going to make you happy. And so there's so much of our own work we have to do in this. Because when and if you leave the relationship, you're left to still deal with all of that stuff.
That's right.
Deal with the depression and the way that you feel when you don't have that person around. And that's why going no contact and all of that is just the most painful and hard thing for women to do.
And it's also the most important and the most difficult when you have kids. If you have kids,
still
with
have to interact
person.
with this person.
Right. Yes, exactly. That's the hardest part. I know we have a couple minutes left, and I just want to touch on, because we haven't talked about this yet, going to therapy with your abuser. Don't do it.
Nope. I can say I have never once heard of one single positive story of a woman going to therapy with her partner and it went well. In fact, it's just nightmare story after nightmare story of the therapist trying to equalize the relationship issues, because they're not trained in this.
That's right.
So they're trying to make it a communication issue when that's not the issue.
Mm-hmm. Because their client is the relationship, right? And like you said, they're trying to equalize it. So it's like, okay, what's your part? Everything's 50-50, right?
Uh-huh.
And like they're dealing with the feelings, but they're not at all able to see or understand the source.
Well, and you said something earlier about this, where you said the therapist said, I need like a red flag or yellow flag. Like we made this agreement in therapy that when I'm feeling this way, you need to let me go. And he's like, and he didn't listen. So that's where I'm saying they are not going to follow through behind closed doors.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And they're going to use your vulnerabilities against you, right? Because you're in therapy and you're like, okay, well, this is safe. I can now open myself up and I can talk about my feelings. I can talk about my anxiety. I can talk about how confused I am. Right. And then they're going to use that as a weapon against you in your next fight.
Yeah. Because the thing is, you don't want to be vulnerable with this person. That's what the mistake women make is, you're being vulnerable with someone who's unsafe for you to be emotionally vulnerable with. And yes, they will use that as ammunition later. The other thing I've seen a lot is just a chronic invalidation in therapy, because the therapist doesn't know what's happening. So the woman is not getting validated.
Right.
Just so like even gaslighting, and it's terrible. So I say therapy has its place. That's my background. So I obviously have some belief in its power, but find someone who is, I always say, find someone who is, several levels ahead of you. Don't go to someone who doesn't know any better.
Oh my God, please don't be the smartest person in the room when you're in therapy.
Yeah, exactly. I have a hard time finding someone myself, because I'm like,
I do too, Leanne. I do too. It's really hard.
Yeah.
It's really hard.
I usually end up paying really expensive coaches to work with me, right? They cost a lot more than $150, but I get exponentially more out of it, because for me, therapy is just an outlet to just go and kind of just process my thoughts. Cause I don't want to dump all that on my family and friends, right? That's my thing.
Mm-hmm. Right.
And so it's good for that, just to kind of get it out. But I find beyond that, it unless you have a really skilled therapist, someone that has the training and the self-growth and the self-awareness combined that can help you, it's just kind of, you're just going there to sort of kill time. Yeah. You'll notice you're not getting anywhere.
Right.
So find someone that you really feel can help you move forward, whether it's a therapist or a coach of some kind that has the skills to help you.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Amen, sister. I remember being in therapy once. I was desperate looking for a therapist, and it was a really bad period of my life financially. So I had to go with someone in network, and I found this woman, and, I was there for like, my first session, and she halfway through, she looked at me and she goes, "Huh, you're really emotionally intelligent." And I was like, "Oh, fuck." Like, she already was like, "I don't know what to do with you."
Yeah.
Like,
I've had that many times, like, "Oh, you seem very self-aware and you're, all these things."
Like,
and like,
yes,
yes, I know what's
find the blind spots. Like, if you can't help me find the blind spots. Right. And the other thing I think that the difference I always say between therapy and coaching is that, if you've been in therapy for a really long time and you're like, okay, I get it. Like, I understand the history. I understand my family history. I get my childhood wounds, blah, blah, blah. Okay. And now what?
Yes.
And now what?
Yes.
You're ready for coaching.
And that's where I feel like what I do with women is, because I have my background in counseling. I don't have a counseling practice anymore, but it obviously informs my approach, right?
Sure. Right.
But I tend to sort of have like this blended method where I will go into the past if I think it's going to help the person, and then move into, okay, let's move you back into cognitive action, focus, plan, strategy. So it's kind of like both. It's not just that. But it's like, okay, so now we've kind of done this. So now what are we going to do? Let's move you forward. And therapy most often won't include that. It's just, okay, your hour's up. So next week, same time.
Good chat.
And you're like, well, I am not even moving forward. So you have, I don't want to knock therapy. I'm sure there are many, many good therapists out there that will help you with that. But as a therapist, you're trained to not give advice. You're told to not give direct advice and tell a client what to do.
Right.
Or not to do.
That's right.
So that's why you're not getting that. You're getting the validation and the reflection and the mirroring and the, maybe problem solving strategies together, but you're not getting here's your options. Which one are you going to do? When are you going to do it by? Here's your accountability. I'm going to check back.
Here's your homework. Right.
Yeah.
Here's your homework. Here's your checklist.
And I hold my clients accountable. I'm like, so what of those from the last session did you do? And they're kind of like, sometimes they're like, right?
Nothing. Right. And that's great. Like, when my clients don't do it, then it's like, okay, great. So what got in the way? Right. Cause that's where we look.
Yeah, exactly. And that's how they can really look. But therapy isn't goal oriented, right? It's just, exactly. You could go for months and months and not get anywhere. Yeah, exactly. So again, it has its place. But I do believe that even if you can have a therapist and a coach, like a lot of times women come into my program and I explain to them, I'm not telling you to quit therapy. However, if you were to take that investment and put it into this program, I can tell you, you're going to get 100,000 times more out of it than that. Your choice, right?
Right. Exactly.
Or you can keep going to therapy and do both. But I think the approach of having both is powerful, to have a mentor and a coach to guide you, and a therapist, you can just go kind of vent and figure out, why am I like this? What's this from? Where did this originate?
And very often, like, I'll connect dots to childhood that a therapist hasn't connected. And then my clients will take it back to their therapist, and then they'll be able to go further with it.
Oh, that's right. Absolutely. Yeah. I have women that do that all the time, where they're in the program and and then the therapist is like, who are you working with?
Who is this
girl's Instagram handle? I get to learn from her, or they send my podcast.
Not to toot our own horns, but
it's all right. We can do that.
We can. That's what we're here for. Exactly. Oh my gosh. Okay. Leanne, tell us where everyone can find you. I think did you say you had an offer for everybody?
What I will do is I will offer my 3-part Pain to Power Bootcamp. It's a 3-part video series, and it comes with some email follow-ups to kind of keep you on track in the work. And so what I'll do is I'll make that available to your audience.
That's so great. So that'll be in the show notes. And you can also find Leanne's amazing Instagram at Awakening Women Support. And where is that also your website?
My website is leanneoaten.com. If you want to just go and like peruse and check out all the different things that I have. And then my podcast is the Awakening Women podcast as well.
So everything is going to be in the show notes. You guys can, all the links will be available. And I highly recommend you spend some time getting to know Leanne, because she's amazing, obviously, and a wealth of information and support. Thanks for coming on.
Thanks for tuning in to another episode of the Divorce Survival Guide podcast. If you like what you hear, head on over to Apple Podcasts or wherever you listen in and leave me a review. And don't forget to follow me on Instagram at The Divorce Survival Guide. I'll see you next time, and until then, remember, you, my love, deserve to be happy.